What Carrie and I have decided to talk about today is CMP exams. And the reason is that these are so important to veterans that are going and trying to get their claims granted or increased. I am just going to go through the process of what's going to happen and what VA does and what's happening behind the scenes so you can understand the process essentially. So CMP exams or compensation and pension exams are exams that VA orders, and they are required to order in certain situations where they need to make sure that you actually have the disability that you're claiming and also to check the severity of that disability. They are then sometimes given medical opinions where a medical provider needs to make a nexus and say, yes, this current disability is related to medical, or this current disability is secondary to an already service-connected condition, and that requires a medical person. So what happens is you file your claim. VA is going to do a couple of things, but they're going to look at that claim. And if based on what they're looking at, they think that there may be a way to provide service connection and they think that your claim has merit, what they're going to do is most likely, even though they don't have to, order an exam. What they do in the background is they will put out an exam request that they send out to the different contractors that they have, and they have a couple, and they're going to pose very specific questions to that contract company. They're going to say, this is the issue, here's some information about it, and these are some questions we need you to answer. They'll also say whether or not it's required to be an in-person exam or if they can just do a record review. So then that goes to the company reads over it, and if they don't have any questions about that exam, the company is then going to reach out to you, the veteran, and try to schedule something. Each company has their own way of scheduling. One has something where you have to log into a portal and create an online account. Other ones will just call you. I've heard that some have sent overnight signature requested packages with all the information in it. So it just depends on who's doing that exam, on how you're going to be notified that you're being scheduled for an exam. When they call to schedule that exam, you will be given a date and a time and everything else. And for the most part, you want to make yourself available to go to those exams. But in a situation where they want to schedule you for an exam 175 miles away from your home, you are allowed at that point to say, hey, this is a little too far for me. Can I please have one closer? Like, you do have some input, and especially if it's difficult for you to get out of your home or whatever it might be. If you say, hey, I'm not available or I can't drive that far, that contract person will go back to VA and they will try to reschedule that exam within the parameters that you're looking for. And like I said, it is important that you go. You can also at that point find out what conditions you're being seen for. You can ask that question. And sometimes you may be asked to see multiple providers. So depending on what claims you've got out there. So let's say you need to go see a medical doctor because you have diabetes and some heart conditions. They may do all of that with one provider. You may go into one provider and they may do multiple DBQs with you. If you need to go see specialists, so there are certain exams that have to be done by certain kinds of doctors. For example, mental health has to be done by either a psychiatrist or a psychologist. You can't go see just a regular nurse practitioner for that. It has to be done by someone with the requisite training for it. If you're doing hearing loss, you have to be seen by an audiologist. So you'd be scheduled for a separate exam for that. If you're dealing with TBIs and a diagnosis of TBI, it has to be a neurologist or a psychiatrist. So if you have multiple conditions and you have some of these other conditions on there, you may be called for multiple exams by multiple providers. So keep that in mind. Now, once you're at the exam, this is where I think it is important to kind of take heed and take notice of where your exam is and what your examiner is like. One of the pieces of advice that Carrie and I always give our clients is when you show up to that exam, pay attention to where it's located. Is it located in a strip mall? Is it located in a storage unit? Is it at an actual medical facility? Where are you going for this exam? And that's important because you want to make sure that you're seeing the right type of provider. When you go in, keep in mind that these examiners are watching you from the moment you get out of your vehicle. We've seen people writing on there, well, I watched them walk right up and, blah, 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 blah. So When you're showing up, keep in mind they are watching you. But you want to go in and talk to the provider, answer their questions. A big thing is you want to be honest when you go to exams, but also keep in mind that you need to let VA know how bad your symptoms really are. And so when you're describing things, describe them on the worst day that you're having, on what the worst day feels like, because sometimes you may be having a good day, but they need to know how the disability actually affects you. You want to keep track of how long you were there, whether or not they let you answer any questions, or whether or not they just asked you questions and then kind of moved you kind of quickly through it. So once you leave that exam, get in your car, jot some things down, and really just keep note of that stuff in case you need it later. Some examiners are really great. They ask a lot of questions. They understand your disabilities. They're very interested to know how your disabilities are affecting you. And some are not so great. It is kind of the luck of the draw on who you're going to see for your conditions. I wish it was more consistent, but unfortunately it's not. Now you've gone to your exam, you've gone home. What happens in the background is that contract company will then take that exam and upload it into your VA file. It goes into your VA file, and the person that ordered it or the supplemental claim first line raters are going to look at that. And then they're going to do a couple of things. They're either going to say this exam is inadequate. It didn't answer the questions that we're looking for. We can't rate on this. We need another exam, or we need clarification. So they may at that point ask for additional exams or clarification on exams, and that'll happen without your knowledge. But if you get called for another exam for the same condition that you just went to an exam for, that's probably what happened, is that someone looked at that exam and said, okay, this isn't working for us. We need more information, or things were not answered correctly. Or they may go ahead and make a decision based on those CMP exams. At that point, you can look at it, see maybe you were granted, maybe you were denied. If you were denied and you think that your exam was inadequate, that would be the time to raise the issue of, well, I went in and I was only there for 5 minutes. I went into a strip mall and I was seen by a podiatrist for my heart condition. That would be the time to raise those issues with the examiner. Maybe not as soon as you leave the examination. Just don't know that it really does anything at that point right after the examination. So wait until you get a decision and see what happens. And that's kind of the basics of CMPs and what to expect and how VA handles them. VA can request exams for any multitude of things. We now are seeing an uptick in exams over TARAs. If there's any kind of TARA at all, like, so they'll do a TARA toxic exposure risk assessment. If there's any kind of toxic exposure, we're seeing exams be ordered on it and exam requests asking whether or not conditions are related to that TARA. VA is supposed to make a decision based on the record if there's enough there, but 9 times out of 10, those first line raters are going to order exams, whether they need to or not. And it is important that you show up to them, because if you don't, if you're requesting an increase or something like that, if you don't show up to that exam and you don't show good cause for not showing up, they will deny your claim. They will say, we ordered an exam. There was probably information that was really going to be helpful to us. We can't make a determination and we're denying it. So if you don't show up, that is what will happen. They will deny the claim if you don't go without good cause.
Hey, Nate here, Hill and Ponton's video guy. The video you just watched is expanded on further in this one right here. Learn something more, increase your rating. As Matt always says, knowledge is power. So go ahead,